What's going on, guys? My name is Ali with 5M Tech. Today we are going to review the latest Samsung A14. But before we start, please like and subscribe to 5M Tech. So let's jump into it. There's two different A14s, the 4G LTE version and a 5G version. They're pretty similar phones, just intended for different regions, and collectively around the world, the combined sales of the A14s are more than double any other Samsung smartphone, at least through the first half of 2023. But here's the things. The A14 is a phone that kept all the little bits and features flagship phones have long abandoned, so it's also a much more well-rounded and feature-packed phone. For those of us who like this simple things, the headphone jack is still there. For example, at the bottom of the phone it has a physical fingerprint sensor on the side, which I know some people still prefer over the budget and mid-tier under-display sensors, and probably most important, it still has a spot for a micro SD card. You can double or triple the storage on this phone easily for 10 or 20 bucks, and honestly you'll probably need to do that. One of the biggest downsides to this phone is you only get 64 gigabytes of onboard storage to start with, so after all your favorite apps are installed and you've snapped a couple hundred pictures, you'll probably be hurting for more space. But this phone definitely has a couple of cons as well. Its design, at least from the front, is still very budget. The camera notch and big bottom bezel make the phone feel kind of dated or cheap, and even though it's a big phone, 6.6 inches, it feels even bigger with those black borders. The screen-to-body ratio is just not that great. Its display also not water or dust resistant. There's no IP rating. There's no wireless charging either. It's a basic plastic build that looks even more boring in this black colorway. The only saving grace really is that the refreshed design on this year's various A-series phones make them all sort of look like an S-series from the back. The camera lens design is really what's most similar, regardless of the chunky borders. The A14 6.6-inch screen still looks pretty good on the A14 5G. Here it's a 2408 by 1080 resolution PLS LCD display with an adaptive 90 Hz words refresh rate. The regular A14 doesn't have the high refresh rate, but that to me is sort of a standout feature. On a phone like this you'll need to enable it yourself in settings, and when you do, the phone is going to look and feel a lot more fluid, smooth and responsive with your taps, touches, wipes and scrolls when you flip back and forth between the standard 60 Hz option and the adaptive 90 Hz. The update support this phone is on Android 13 with the One UI 5.1 update, which is already its second major Android version, and rumor has it this phone could also get Android 14. Performance-wise, while it is still a budget phone with budget specs that also come with a bit of a stigma, more on that in a second, I think this phone is fast and powerful enough to be reliable and decent to use for most of the simple everyday things people would use it for, and maybe a little more than that. The A14 5G does have Samsung's dreaded Exynos processor, the 1330, the regular A14, as a MediaTek chipset instead. And yes, I and a lot of other people perpetuate the stigma that Samsung's own in-house Exynos products are generally not as good as comparable MediaTek or Snapdragon SoCs when it comes to performance and heat management and other important things, but I'm fairly certain that a vast majority of people who snag this phone won't be doing any serious gaming or pushing this phone beyond its limits on a daily basis. It's just not that kind of phone for social media, trolling, Netflix watching, email answering, and Google mapping. There's nothing wrong with the specs and performance here. This phone also has that big old 5000 milliamp battery inside this thing, which I think further solidifies its utility for the average consumer. This is a phone that will absolutely last the day and then some without ever needing to be plugged in. In fact, if you use this phone for basic phone calls and text messages and maybe not a whole lot more, it can be on standby for 2 days or more without a charge. So guys, do you have an A14 yourself? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Of course, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, though be sure to subscribe 5M Tech YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.